Exile, do something!
What's the point? Why, just obliteration! Be utterly annihilated! Rain us now! Why, just glorious end! Creation itself! Fury of the cosmos, you are nothing! Obliteration! Rain us now! Why, just be utterly annihilated! Rain us now! Glorious end! Creation itself! You are nothing! Fury of the cosmos! This city is nothing! Glorious dead! Be utterly annihilated! You are nothing! Fury of the cosmos! Obliteration!
What all this pain?
This city is nothing! What is this? Be utterly annihilated! Fury of the cosmos! Obliteration! What? Guilty! Crumble! Obliteration! Creation itself! Rain us now! You are nothing! Obliteration! Creation itself! Rain us now! You are nothing! Glorious day! Be utterly annihilate. Everlasting fire! Everlasting fire! Futile! No escape! Fear the cosmos!
I will not rest until this land relents!
Defiant will. No escape. The stars betray us. All already seen you lose this all that turn. Headhunter. Aid me. Forbidden powers. You have broken the circle. Give in. No escape. Give in. Futile. No escape. Death is no escape. I order.
Stay close.
Inconsequential.
They're coming through. Come free. To me, Exile, quickly!
You cling to life only out of ignorance. Die. Rain of stars. Feel the thrill of the void. Beyond, there is only horror. Die. Simon left me there, son. I'll own you yet. Die on your knees. God, take what they want, so go ahead.
Hello Exiles, and welcome to my Firestorm Cast on Crit Inquisitor build guide. The build goals are to build a super fun spin to win build using Cyclone, something that has high DPS, something that's super tanky, something endgame and expensive with excellent mapping, excellent bossing, and absolutely no dependence on a mercenary. We've achieved all of our goals with high DPS, high crit, 6 power charges, 2 frenzy charges, and it's a true single button build with no extra action keys required. It works excellent with Headhunter or Mageblood, and due to our very high crit we're doing a lot of damage, so we have 100% crit chance for attacks and spells, and above 700 crit multi for our spells in the endgame version. In terms of our defensiveness, we have 12,000 energy shield, max block with 88 and 88 attack and spell block. We have 20% physical damage reduction, 4,000 energy shield leech on spell hit, along with 300 ES regen and ES recharge. Now, ES regen and recharge are different mechanics. ES regen is something that applies constantly all the time, whereas ES recharge applies after you stop combat for a few seconds. This build is immune to many different things, letting you do a wide variety of map mods. So the first point is we are critical strike immune from bosses due to the effect marked enemy cannot deal crits. So I think this is a very useful skill for just one skill point, as in it's a mastery, and this prevents the enemy that the mark is on from dealing crit damage to you. The next is chaos and poison immune, which we get from our notable chaos inoculation, and the whole build is CI, which means we don't have any life, we just scale energy shield. Next we are stun immune, which is very important for Cyclone builds because as a character you're smashing yourself into major mobs of enemies, and so you can very easily get stunned. So stun immunity is very important and essential for this build. Our main sources of DPS are Cyclone, which is the main attack skill, and this skill triggers other skills. So Cyclone triggers Firestorm as well as Lightning Tendrils, and the majority of DPS comes from Firestorm and Lightning Tendrils. Firestorm is great for single target damage, so for rares or for map bosses or for any kind of boss, and Lightning Tendrils is great for map clear because it can shoot up to 16 tendrils every time you're casting it. And lastly we have Shock Nova that's attached to Svalin, which makes it cast on block. So this thing does a little bit of damage, but it mainly shocks enemies, which improves our lightning damage. To understand how our skills work, you can look at this map over here. On the left side we have Cyclone, and Cyclone is attached to Cast on Crit. Now Cast on Crit is a gem that will trigger any spells whenever your main attack skill does a crit. So therefore we want 100% hit chance on Cyclone and 100% attack crit chance in order to trigger Cast on Crit. Then Cast on Crit as a gem triggers Firestorm and Lightning Tendrils, which are our main sources of damage. So Cyclone itself does very low damage, negligible, and all our damage comes from the spells. Therefore we are scaling spell damage. And to scale spell damage, we have used crit in this build. So we have above 90% spell crit chance, which is something you need, and above 500 spell crit multi. Right? So remember to scale spell crit multi and not attack crit multi. To understand how fast our skills are executed, you can always refer to POB and you can simply select the skills to see the attack rate. So as you can see here, we have Cyclone, which is attacking at 10 times per second or 10 APS. This is in my endgame build. And because of this, due to it's attached to Cast on Crit, and Cast on Crit further triggers our spells, each of our spells are then cast 5 times a second according to POB. So you can see over here, I've inspected Firestorm using POB, and the effective trigger rate is 5, which gives us 5 casts a second. So because the entire build scales very well with attack speed, it is recommended to get attack speed on almost everything that you can, and this will let you do much more damage. So for this build, I've used Inquisitor. Now, if you're wondering why, let me explain. Inquisitor has a couple of very good ascendancy nodes. We have Righteous Providence, which helps us cap our crit chance. So without this node, we'd have to manually cap our attack crit and then separately cap our spell crit. But with Righteous Providence, we can cap both crit chance simultaneously simply by stacking strength or int. Now, since our intelligence on such a character is already very high, you should get 600, 700 int without trying too hard. The tough thing is strength. So therefore you have to work hard to stack strength on whatever gear you can in order to cap a crit chance. So as you can see over here, around 400 strength should give you 100% crit chance. The next node that Inquisitor has that's really good is called Inevitable Judgment. And what this does is this lets us completely ignore monster elemental resistance. So whether it's a boss or a rare or whatever, even if it has plus 50, plus 100 res, it doesn't matter. All of our crits, as in most of our damage, will completely ignore the resistance of the enemy. So this eliminates the need for resistance penetration and also eliminates the need for a Doriani Merc. And keep in mind that due to this node and due to the fact that we're doing almost 100% crit or capped crit, there is no point stacking resistance penetration on any of your items. In order to make this build more accessible, I'll be giving you 2 versions in terms of 2 different POBs. The Headhunter version is cheaper and will give you less defense and DPS, but you can build it in around 100 div. The Mageblood version is more expensive and we use Mageblood, Svalin and a lot of expensive gear, and this can be built in around 500 div. On this screen, I've listed the complete build cost for the expensive version, which is what I have. And I've listed every single item used in the POB, the uniques, the items, the jewels, everything. And as you can see, the total cost comes to around 500 div, all inclusive. Now to understand the auras and buffs that we're using, we have all of these active and we take advantage of all of these to improve our damage and defense. So the first one is Zealotry, which gives us increased crit and increased spell damage. So this is very good for scaling our spell damage. Anger, because we mainly do a lot of heavy damage or single target damage with Firestorm. So we have Anger and we have a Anger Watcher's Eye as well. So we have this. Discipline on the endgame gear version gives us approximately 1000 extra energy shield as well as some ES regen. Now, since these are auras, the gem quality doesn't do anything and you can simply buy level 21 0% quality gems and that should be fine. Now the ones on the right, you have Tempest Shield, which gives us plus 25% chance to block spells, which is huge. It also grants us power charges because that's how we've linked it. And we have Automation, which is connected to Steel Skin. So every now and then Steel Skin will trigger, which kind of absorbs a little bit of damage before the damage hits us. So this gives us a nice defensive boost. Lastly, we have Assassin's Mark, which is automatically cast. You don't have to enable it or anything since we have Mark on hit. So Assassin's Mark gives us better crit chance and better crit multi against one enemy at a time. So in the case of a map, maybe the toughest enemy like a rare will get marked. In the case of map bosses or bossing, the boss will always have a mark and therefore do increased damage against the boss. Now on the screen I've shown you my hotkey setup, which is something that I find very useful to reduce the RSI or repetitive strain injury. And a lot of players have their main skill on the right click button, but with this setup you can try it out. It's something different. We have walk on left click, so you just left click around to walk anywhere. We have cyclone on spacebar, which you execute using your left hand, and shield charge, which is like a movement skill, is on your right click. So therefore you don't have to click much, you simply have to press spacebar, like you'll be holding spacebar most of the time. And when you want to navigate around, you can either walk using your left click or shield charge using your right click. So this greatly reduces the strain on your right hand or your mouse hand, and this is something you can try, and it's quite nice. And we also have our auras and buffs. I've just assigned them to keys 1 through 5, and you can see they all have to be active in order to work. And you can assign these hotkeys using the options input panel, right? So you go to options and you click on the input tab, and then over there you can find all the hotkey assignments and you can change those assignments. I'm simply using my left mouse button to walk around, and then I can use right click to shield charge, which is a movement skill, so you can see the character kind of surges around. And then I have spacebar, which executes cyclone. So this is very convenient, it's very simple, and you can use right click many times continuously to shield charge from one end of the map to the other, and you can use spacebar or cyclone to kind of kill things, right? So this is something that's very nice. You can try it out, and this is approximately the usage that you'll expect with this build. In addition, if you stay still, we have two skills that execute on block. We have Tempest Shield, which retaliates on block, and we also have Shock Nova, which Svalin executes for us on block. Great, now that you've understood how the build works, let's dive into the gear requirements. So the most important piece of gear when you're scaling your damage is your weapon, and we don't use a unique weapon because there's none suitable. We simply use a dagger because we want to scale a very specific set of mods. The most important mod is you need an open prefix on the dagger that you buy or you craft, and on this open prefix you're going to craft hits can't be evaded. So this gives us 100% hit chance without wasting any more skill points. If you don't have this mod, you'll have to spend maybe 6, maybe more skill points in order to cap your hit chance. The next thing is we want at least 30% or more crit chance, which is your attack crit chance, and this is necessary to trigger our cast on crit and to trigger our spells. So if you have a very low crit chance on your attacks, your spells won't execute and we won't do any damage, right? So it's very important to have crit chance, and the other mods should be filled with attack speed, crit multi, spell damage, whatever other supporting mods that you can find. Now for your shield, you'll either want Svalin, or if you can't afford a Svalin, you can buy a rare shield. So Titanium Spirit Shield is the best base type because it's best for energy shield stacking, and the most important mods on your shield are to get 40% chance to block as well as much energy shield as possible. Int also gives you ES, right? Now the other useful mods you can have on your shield are resistances, increase spell crit, or regen life per second, which turns into regen energy shield per second. Next up, our helmet. So we stack a couple of auras and buffs, as you can see, and because of that we need some increased mana reservation efficiency, which allows us to stack those many auras, and these mods mainly come from our helmet. So you need at least 17% mana reservation efficiency on your helmet. As you can see, I've highlighted them. One of them needs to be an explicit mod on your helm, and the other one can be crafted using Ichors and Embers. Now remember I told you how the whole build scales up with attack speed. So the most important damage mod that we want on our gear is attack speed, and the best place to get it is gloves and rings. So on our gloves we want at least 15% attack speed, and on both of our rings we want at least 5-6% attack speed, and you also want an empty suffix slot on your ring so that you can craft +1 frenzy charges. This is very important because frenzy gives us much more attack speed, and this is the only source of frenzy charges on this build. And what I've done is I've got one very good ring and then I use a Kalandra's Touch to clone it. If you don't want that setup, you can buy 2 separate rings or craft 2 separate rings, and that's up to you. For our flask setup, we have a Rumi's Concoction to cap our block chance, and then we have most of them are damage flasks, in addition to a Quicksilver flask to negate Cyclone's reduced movement speed. So if you don't use Quicksilver, while casting Cyclone, you'll find your character moving very slowly. That's because Cyclone reduces your movement speed. So we use Quicksilver to counter that. In addition, we have Sulfur, Diamond and Silver, which simply improve our attack speed and therefore improve our damage. Now for a very simple leveling guide, I won't go into too much detail, but basically the leveling gear that I used to level up this character was a tabula, a gold rim, and 2 of these axiom wands, which are very low level wands that you can wield from a low level. In addition, I used a storm charger, boots to level, Adziri's foible to give me mana, and Kikazaru rings are useful for the lab. Now obviously you're going to need to buy rare gear as needed as you level through the acts. You're going to need a rare wand and shield somewhere around Act 4. The skill tree also changes to accommodate a shield and give you more block nodes, which lets you complete the acts faster. And you need to constantly upgrade your rare wand as needed. That's based on your common sense. And you will be using this setup, this wand and shield setup, till around level 80 or 84, till you can wield your endgame gear. So until that level, you're probably going to use a life and mana build. And around level 80-84, you'll completely switch to an energy shield build, you'll use the dagger, and that's when you'll enable cast on crit. As for the leveling skill gems, I mentioned them on this page. This is exactly what I used even in a league start scenario, and this is very doable. So initially from Act 1, we start with Rolling Magma, which is a very low level spell. At Act 3, we switch to Wave of Conviction because we have a skill tree that gives us more lightning damage. At around Act 4, the moment we can equip Firestorm, we do that, and that really helps us level through the acts. I was able to complete all 10 acts using a 4 link in a league start scenario. So this is definitely doable. And Act 6 onwards, now we can have some more advanced gems. So that's when you have Archmage and other things. Again, we're using Adziri's foible, which is an amulet that gives us a lot of mana regen. So Archmage scales up very well with that. And this is something that is an example. If you have your own way to level up an Inquisitor, go ahead. This is just a recommendation for those who don't know how to do it. And for the supporting skill gems, you have either Clarity or Wrath linked to Eternal Blessing. So we just have one aura through the acts. And for movement, we use Flame Dash with faster casting. I have a POB with all of the skill trees you need, the leveling skill trees, endgame skill trees, and what you have to do is you have to import my POB into Path of Building, and then you can use the drop down that I've shown you on the tree tab to access different skill trees. So this lets you see the different skill trees recommended for different levels as you level up, and as you can see at level 80 or around 84, you're going to switch to cast on crit, and that's when the entire skill tree will change as well as the gear will change. Alright, now let's look at some of the ways we can increase our defense. Firstly, get more than 8000 energy shield, which is essential to become tanky. To do this, you can stack ES or Int. Next, ensure your block is capped. There are different block values for the Headhunter and Mageblood version, because with the Mageblood version, we have Svalin, which lets us go right up to 88 block. So we have a red Nightmare Jewel socketed in on the left side of the tree, along with some tattoos that give us fire resistance, and the fire resistance values actually also gives us attack block. So ensure that you set up that part properly. If you follow the skill tree and you have the right items, you should get max block. Next, ensure you're using Tempest Shield, which helps us cap our spell block. Next, you can ensure that you've taken the Chaos Inoculation notable, which helps us become immune to chaos damage. Also ensure that you have taken some ES leech nodes on the skill tree, because that's our only source of ES leech. And remember, we are leeching spell damage and not attack damage. And also we need the mastery 5% of leeches instant, which helps us become much more tanky when you're slamming yourself into large mobs of enemies. So by instantly leeching any of the damage that you've taken, it helps you become much more tanky. Set up immunities. You need freeze immune, stun and curse immune, and I also have set up bleed or corrupt blood immune on all the builds. If you're finding your damage is low, this guide will help you fix it. Firstly, ensure that you have 100% hit chance, which is required in order to proc or cast on crit. So that can be done by crafting the certain mod on your weapon. Next, ensure that you have 100% attack crit chance, which needs around 450 strength and int. And this is important because this is necessary to proc our cast on crit, which then triggers our spells. In order to get more strength and int, if you're finding it a little short, you can use the split personality jewel, and I've used one of these in the Headhunter version, and you have to socket in farthest from the start of the tree to have the most effect. And for the split personality jewel, you need to pick one which has strength and int on it. Next up, ensure that you've taken Inner Conviction. Inner Conviction is a keystone that is granted by the Militant Faith jewel. So what Militant Faith does is, any keystone that is within its radius gets turned into Inner Conviction. So you can have just one of these jewels, and as you can see, when I socket it in, the keystone nearest to it, which is Hexmaster, changes into Inner Conviction. So this is the most important node for scaling up your DPS. As we gain more power charges, it will give you more spell damage as well. Also ensure that you've taken all of the +1 to power charges nodes on the skill tree. That scales up our spell damage by a huge amount. So we need at least 10 attacks per second. In my endgame version, I have 15 attacks per second. And this is required in order to trigger our spells more often. And finally, last but not least, crit multi is the best and most powerful way to scale up the build damage. So you need either spell crit multi or elemental skill crit multi on your jewels and on your gear. And that will help you to do much more damage. Alright, now let's say you've made your build but you want to check your DPS and defensive statistics. So what you can do is you can install Path of Building, the community version, and then use one of my POBs, open one of my POBs which has the configuration that you need. And then you go to the Import Export tab, type in your character name and import the relevant character. Once that's done, you need to set up Cyclone, the number of stages. And then you need to set up your skill counts for Lightning Tendrils as well as for Firestorm. You'll always enter the values that I've shown here because this is not taken into consideration by POB. Once you've set up all of this and once you have the same config that I have, you should get an accurate DPS estimation of your current build. So that's all for my cast on crit guide. I hope you enjoy this build. It's a very fun build. It's an endgame build, but it can really smash through maps, smash through bosses, and it's very tanky, so you can do very endgame content with it. And I hope you enjoy it and I hope you have a great time. So until next time, stay sane, Exile.